this is our presentation for part 3, community-based anti-oppressive ethics. Next slide. We wanted to do a quick recap of our scenario to start off with. Next slide. Alright, to review, these are our characters. We have Yesenia, the supervisor, Emerson, the intern, Sean, the social worker, and Priscilla, the agency head. Next slide. The scenario is as follows. Emerson saw Sean watching porn. Could you go back, please?
Sorry.
It's okay. Backwards? Alright. Alright, the scenario is as follows. Emerson saw Sean watching porn with an underage client. Emerson reported what they saw to their supervisor, Yesenia. Yesenia Googled Sean and found Sean's social media post that suggested some improprieties in an article about Sean leaving a school social work position under allegations of improprieties. Yesenia told Priscilla, who spoke with Sean, who had denied the allegations. Sean claims that it was to treat the client's reported sex addiction, that they don't consent to digital searches, and that there are several people with their same name. Priscilla told Yesenia to handle the situation. So how should they proceed? Next slide. This is a quick recap of our group discussion from step 2. Next slide. Alright, Patty, if you wanted to start off.
The decision of the ethical model I chose was the ethical principle screen because it gives a clear and organized way to make tough decisions, especially when it comes to client safety, power, dilemmas. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
And professional accountabilities when that is involved. So Jasmine and Emma did the Reamer's 7-step model, which they chose because it was a clear guide a clear guide of guidance. It is structured by a seven step-by-step process, and it also considers the duties and the consequences. It also defers to the NASW and COMAR, and is easy. Can you pronounce that for me? Easy to defeatable
Easily
outcomes,
defensible.
easily defeatable outcomes. Both the ethical principle screen and Reamer's 7-step model helps guys tough decisions by focusing on client safety, fairness, and accountability. Both models lead to the same outcome, protects the minor, and acts ethically and in use of power responsibility.
Okay. Next slide. Alright. The influential moral theories kind of differed depending on which model we were using. For example, Jess and I both used the same model, and we both thought that deontology and utilitarianism were influential. Uh, both models, the model considers who was impacted, but also asks us to refer to ethical principles and mandates from NSAW, COMAR, and other peers. Um, Whereas Patty's model really focused on ethical duties rather than who was impacted, while also still considering virtues and principles like justice, least harm, autonomy, integrity, honesty, and safety. That's not to say that caring about the impact on the client isn't important. That is central to the ethic of care. Interestingly, no matter which framework our models were influenced by, all three of our priorities were to protect the client from harm, regardless of the theory that we chose, and everybody used a mix of duty-based and consequentialist ideas. Next slide. All right. It's also really important to consider power in this scenario. Both the power that Yesenia holds as a supervisor, as well as various anti-oppressive lenses that we can view this through. Patty and Jas really focused on the former, thinking about how Yesenia holds power over Sean, how Sean holds power over their client, and how it is our Yesenia's responsibility to responsibly use that power to protect instead of how Sean used it to hurt. Whereas my analysis really focused on various anti oppressive lenses, such as the power that adults hold over children, that therapists hold over their clients, that bosses hold over their workers. All of us felt that it was important to use power to protect instead of hurt. And all of us acknowledged that it is important to make use of an anti oppressive lens. Next slide.
Sorry, bear with me.
Mm,
I don't know if my internet here in Rome has, did I go too far? Okay.
okay, perfect. All right, Patty, I think this one's yours.
Okay. Though we use different models, I use because I use the ethical principle screening, and Jasmine and Emma with the Remo screening. We shared a we shared a common goal to protect the youth and ensure accountability. The ethical principle screen safety emphasize on safety and transparency and power and balance, while the Reamer model focused on laws and ethics and reflection. Both approaches led to the same ethical decision grounded in the anti-oppressive practice and responsibility use of power. Did I do the wrong?
Mm,
Okay.
all right. Right. So, considering all of the different aspects of everyone's various analyses, we kind of synthesized them all together like this. This was our final ethical decision based on what everyone had to say. First, we felt that it was important to immediately suspend Sean for the duration of the investigation to minimize any risk of further harm. Secondly, Sean's client needs to be transferred to another therapist in order to ensure continuity of care. Third, we want to interview all parties involved and gather information, and we want to do that using a neutral party to kind of minimize that power imbalance and get the most accurate information. Next, we need to confirm the identity of the person in the online content before we can use the Google results as a part of our investigation. All three of us kind of felt that it was okay for Yesenia to use those Google results, even though Sean said that they didn't consent due to various lack of explicit laws, despite the principle of informed consent, because preventing harm kind of trumps consent in this case. Next, we need to file a complaint with the Board of Social Workers so that a professional review can be conducted. During that professional review, while that's ongoing, we felt that Yesenia should probably participate in trainings on consent and professional misconduct, so that we don't have a repeat of the Googling thing, because that's not really a part of standard procedure. Um, and then also, once the board's review comes back, we plan to abide by their recommended next actions. That could range from Sean has to take remedial trainings, that could be Sean gets fired, that could be Sean loses their license. We all kind of collectively felt that most likely we felt that Sean should lose their job, as this is a pretty serious ethical violation. But most importantly, it would be important to document the entire investigative process just so that we have that proof, that evidence, and we are able to look back on our decision. Next slide. All right. I think this is Jass's slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the key themes in this situation include Sean's potential abuse of professional power and Priscilla's delegation of responsibility without adequate support, which risks reinforcing institutional silence or avoidance. The decision to fire Sean immediately may reflect a knee-jerk reaction rooted in the seriousness of exposing a minor to pornography, assumptions that Sean is lying, and a punitive desire to remove him At the same time, there may be underlying feelings of guilt about contributing to Sean's job loss, highlighting the emotional complexity of the decision.
Okay. Next slide. Perfect. Patty?
Well, yes, ma'am. The ethical countertransference is shaped by our personal history. As far as for me, loss and symptomatic neglect led to over identification of and protective urgency. Jazz fear of liability, prompt self self protective decision making. Emma's upbringing and teen experience influenced by her sensitivity and around sexual topics and client decisions. So basically, our personal experiences like loss, isolation, and past views on sexual shape a strong urge to protect the minor, sometimes risking fairness and objectivity.
All right. Jess again.
All right, and on reflecting on this dilemma, several important considerations emerge. While Sean must be held accountable due to due process is necessary to ensure procedural fairness. Organizational constraints such as liability concerns and staff burnout may influence leadership's response. While Yusina's position as supervisee leaves her vulnerable and raises questions about the ethical implications of her actions, like Google and Sean. Intersectional factors such as race, gender, and class may shape how each stakeholder is perceived or treated, and the client's emotional well being and trust in the agency must remain central. Finally, stakeholder pressures, including concern about the agency's reputation and funding, may create tension between transparency and self protection.
All right. Next slide. All right.
And the decision to terminate Sean was seen as necessary to protect the vulnerable youth at stake, uphold ethical practice, and maintain community trust, while also highlighting the importance of fairness, transparency, and evidence based action. Reflecting on this choice invites the agency to evaluate its processes and strengthen systemic safeguards through improved training, supervision, and hiring practices.
Okay. Next slide. Some final thoughts before we conclude.
And through our community based discussion using an anti oppressive framework, we recognize the need to balance client safety, fairness to Sean, and accountability by applying structured models like the Reamer 7 step framework and the ethical principles screen. The process emphasized due process, transparency, and collaboration, reinforcing the importance of ethical collective decision making that prioritizes marginalized voices and reduces biases.
All right. Let's get that final slide. Thank you for listening. That concludes our presentation.